Welcome to OCD Insights, where we break down the complexities of OCD with compassion, clarity, and hope. Whether you're seeking answers, support, or connection, you're not alone. So let's dive right in with our host, Samantha Bray. This is OCD Insights.
Hello, Samantha Bray here, host of OCD Insights, and I'm going to do my first Q&A episode. I saw a post that really struck a chord. I've had several clients that have had this nearly exact situation come up in the past, and I felt like it would be a very helpful thing to address here. And I asked the young man if I had permission to read this question, and he said yes. And here is what it says. Can HOCD, he's meaning homosexual OCD in this post, can HOCD make you feel aroused to your thought? I try to do exposure by trying to masturbate to thought of men. It made me feel uncomfortable, but after a little bit, I felt myself getting aroused. And I looked up pictures and I got more aroused. The thought of coming out doesn't scare me. It feels almost freeing. I've had HOCD in the past. I don't know why this is happening. I don't even get anxiety while I'm typing this. I feel like I want to be gay now. I don't know what's happening. I feel like my thoughts now. It feels like I just want to be gay now, but it feels okay, question mark. I try doing exposure by using my mom's soap and shampoo and trying to smell like a girl, but it doesn't give me much anxiety. I don't have anxiety about it even while typing this. It just feels like I'm gay now. For context, I've had HOCD before, years ago, and I kind of know how it works. So I don't know if it's just switching things up and making things feel more real, question mark, or maybe I'm just in one big backdoor spike. And I think that is a very brave and a very wonderful question to ask. So I'm going to break it down in pieces because there's a lot going on here. First, I'm remembering a piece of research I saw somewhere once, and don't ask me where, but I could find it if I had to, I think. But it was looking at putting electrodes on people to measure the state of arousal when they saw different types of pictures. And basically, they showed pictures of humans, males, females, all kinds of shapes, sizes, whatnot. And they threw in some experiments with using turtles or bears having sex. And what they came to find is it doesn't matter if you're looking at two turtles having sex, you can get aroused. And that doesn't mean, because this is a problem of assigning meaning to the response and to the thought and to the response, but having a groinal response or any kind of physiological response to seeing animals or humans having sex doesn't mean you want to have sex with them, with turtles. Of course not. It is a primal biological response. All our mind knows is that we're putting in front of ourselves a visual about, and it also has to do with, what you resist persists. Okay. I'll get into that in a second. But for this first piece, it doesn't matter what you look at. There is potential to become aroused. Okay. So when you're saying you try to do exposures by masturbating to thoughts of men, what you're actually doing isn't an exposure. It's like a test. It's a longing to get certainty that you're not aroused to men by thinking about them and then seeing if you're aroused or if you can follow through with masturbating. The hope is, I guess, typically what my clients say, that you'll feel some sort of disgust or aversion or nothing at all. But like I just told you, thoughts about sex, no matter who you're thinking about, can cause these sensations and physical arousal to happen. So thoughts of men made it feel uncomfortable, but after a little bit, you felt yourself getting aroused. Makes total sense. Okay. And then when you looked up pictures, you got more aroused. That's just increasing that stimulus. You're seeing more. You're adding a visual. You were just thinking at first, but now you're adding a visual, and that's going to send more signals from the mind, the brain, to the body. Prepare for sex. We're thinking about sex. It's not really concerned with who you're thinking about when you're thinking about sex or what you're thinking about when you're thinking about sex. So the thought of coming out doesn't scare me. It feels almost freeing. I can't tell you how many clients I've had with this fear, this HOCD theme, that actually say they feel bad for having it because they have sometimes good friends they go to school with or roommates that are gay or maybe a sibling that's gay. Um, and they want to really tell me it's not about a fear of gay people. It isn't that they don't like gay people, but they can't really put their finger on why they have this fear or why does it bring up this, oh my gosh, panic feeling when you think you might be attracted to the same sex. Well, through a lot of talk with several clients over the years, the pattern I've seen on repeat is often answers another question about why is this happening. It's often correlates with your developmental stage or a time in your life. And I don't know this young man, I don't know their age, but for the clients that I see that have this almost near exact question, they're usually young adults, you know, young, young, somewhere between teenager to maybe mid 30s, something in there. It tends to kind of fade out as people age. Now, that's not for everybody, but that has been a pattern that I've seen with clients that have come to me for a variety of themes over the years. Over 10 plus years, I've known some of these people. What I mean by the developmental stage is when you're a young person, even if you're not consciously thinking about it, there could be a context, a culture, an environment that you've been brought up in that has you subconsciously thinking the next step in life, the next goal in life is to find a partner, to find a mate, to maybe in your case find a long-term girlfriend, a committed partner, and then, move closer towards marriage and a family. And sometimes when a goal or an idea or a value is very important to a person, it becomes a lightning rod for OCD. And what I mean by lightning rod is OCD strikes it, right? And so, whatever the value or the goal or the thing that the person wants for their future becomes important, OCD strikes it in the sense of saying, well, what could take this away from you? What could throw a monkey wrench in this? And then your imagination gets sparked. And let me count all the ways that this goal or this next step in my life might be ruined. And one of the first ones to come up can be the fear that I'm not even interested in the opposite sex. And then that's the only time that track needs to be laid down, after the first thought and the what flash and the turning, oh my gosh, and turning your attention to that thought and saying, that's not true. That's not me. Look at all the ways I've proved in the past. That's not who I am. All of that behavior, it's mental compulsive behavior, or maybe even you did some external compulsions, which we call overt compulsions. The turning your attention to it and arguing, debating, and analyzing with it, that's what strengthened that pathway. And so if you don't recall right now ever having thoughts about this, that's fine. It's not always conscious. But when it started way back when you said it happened in the past, before, years ago, I don't know, were you just coming into dating, or were you finishing a goal like graduating high school or college, and the next step would be the next goal that you might have had in your mind's eye was to find a life mate or partner? Just questions. I'm curious. But sometimes that's how it develops. And it doesn't mean you don't like, or you have an aversion to, or you have a prejudice against gay people. It only has to do with what your hopes and dreams and goals are for yourself, or what you have felt was the assumed situation for your next steps in life. Okay, so the thought of coming out doesn't scare you and feels almost freeing. I bet in a way you're wearing this obsession out. And one way you might deal with these what if I'm gay thoughts is, if I am, I am. But until I know for certain, I'm going to put one step in front of the other. And if you see a girl that you like and she's potentially able to go on a date or get to know you better, just keep living your life. Don't keep turning your attention to OCD when it says, maybe you're gay. Go test it out. Think of that as a waste of time. It's just going to feed that obsession every time you turn your attention to it and try to figure out for certain if you are or you aren't. It's the idea of putting that whole theme in a bubble and putting it on the shelf. That's OCD. I'm not going to be able to get certainty around that, especially when you do have anxiety, which you say you don't right now, but especially when your anxiety is high, you've flipped your lid, there's no new learning that's going to come on board at that point. Put it on the shelf and then get back to your life, do literal things you value. And this does not have to do with dating at all. Put your attention back on the present moment, put it back on the email you were writing, put it back on that beautiful dinner you were eating. Think about your five senses, ground yourself in the here and now, and redirect your attention gently without any judgment when those OCD thoughts pop up around that theme. So, in a nutshell, as soon as that theme comes up, thought comes up, you note it as OCD and you gently redirect your focus to the present moment. And if you can, you don't talk to it at all. But if you have to, I hear you. I don't know. And I'm going to put my attention back on the present moment. The more you do that, the more you're going to let your mind rewire and break a feedback loop that you have created over the years that says, when I get triggered by that theme, do the compulsion, the things you've listed here, look it up, research it, test it to feel better. And so what you've created is this loop that says, in order to feel better when I have that theme, I need to do a compulsion. But when I get, oh my gosh, what if? Need to test it out. And briefly, you might feel better. And it really strengthens the cycle every time you do one of these tests or, research experiments to try to figure it out. So what you want to do instead, when you get triggered and you have those thoughts, identify it, name it to tame it. That's OCD. That's my theme. Well, the next OCD thought's going to be, what if it is an OCD? We'll talk about that in a second. So you say, that's my theme. And will yourself to put your mind back on the present moment and let time pass. Every time your mind wanders back to the OCD thought, gently put it back on what you're doing. No judgment. No getting frustrated. This is just the mind doing what the mind does. And when we reinforce a thought by thinking it over and over and over, it gets stronger. So we're just retraining the brain. No judgment here. And when you keep doing that over and over and over, you retrain the brain. When I get that trigger and that theme, to quickly discern its OCD, put your mind back on the present moment, and in time, you feel better. And what you retrain your brain to do is not turn attention to the OCD thoughts, let time pass, and be present in the moment, and you feel better. You keep doing that over and over. Eventually, the OCD loses all its nourishment. You don't argue, debate, analyze, all that, experiment, all that. And over time, you starve it out. And every time you put your focus back on the present moment, onto something you actually value, something that you want to bring into your life that's fruitful, every time you do that, you're not doing OCD. You're growing your life. And in time, it gets fuller and fuller, and you can start to squeeze OCD out. So the thought of coming out doesn't scare you anymore. It feels almost freeing. One, you're onto something. It would be freeing if you could just say, you know what? I can't figure this out. If I am, I am, and live your life. But I don't really sense that is exactly what's happening here. It sounds more like when you test yourself over and over and over, in general, to see if you have an aversion or a disgust to something. What happens is in the beginning, you're sensitized to these thoughts. That's what makes it feel like when you have a thought, it's touching your nervous system like a live wire. You're sensitized. It's that thought in particular strikes a chord. But the more you go towards it over and over and over with the types of exposures that you listed, what you're actually doing is desensitizing yourself to those exposures. And that kind of missed the mark. You weren't going into therapy or ERP saying, I want to have less of an aversion when I see two men having sex. It really disgusts me right now. I have a fear that I might be homosexual. It's not really anything I ever wanted from me. I don't mind if people are gay, but that's just not me. So I'm going to go and try to desensitize myself to feel less disgusted when I see men having sex. That doesn't make any sense. And I know from clients that have come to me that that has been the guidance that they've been given in the past by less informed, less qualified therapists to treat OCD. It misses the mark, okay? When you were saying that you are exposing yourself by using your mom's soap and shampoo, that's closer to the mark, sort of, but only if for some reason you had an aversion to using her shampoo and soap. Now, I don't think that's actually the mark here either, because there's nothing wrong with using something. I mean, that it absolutely doesn't mean you're gay because you like the smell of a soap, or um, you're using a shampoo or a product that's marketed towards women. Of course, that doesn't mean you're gay. And there might be a part of you that just knows. And it's like, this isn't doing anything for me because it doesn't mean anything. You haven't assigned any meaning to it. So smelling like a girl doesn't give you much anxiety because it, it doesn't mean anything. It would be a more appropriate exposure if you want to keep going down the ERP route. Well, first I would ask you, what is in your heart's desire? You really want to be doing, you used to do, that you had planned to do, that you want to do right now. This theme in particular has you sitting on the sidelines. Is there anything you can think of that you're avoiding because you don't want it to come up and derail you? You don't want it to fly in your mind and make you kind of shut down, and maybe people will notice and it'll embarrass you. Or is there any environment that you would like to be in, for the sake of avoiding this trigger, you're not doing it? Are there any books you've wanted to read, movies you've wanted to watch, activities you've maybe wanted to do or learn? And think about what it's having you sit out from doing. And put your attention on going towards those things and adding them into your life. That's the exposure. That's the thing that's shaking the beehive nest. You do the thing in hopes that the bees start doing this. The intrusive thoughts start coming. And that gives you the opportunity to practice what I said earlier, redirecting your attention back to the thing you value. That's OCD. Yep, I expected it. And putting my mind back on the present moment, letting time pass, and all the bees will settle down. That's exposure and ritual or response prevention. You do something that will stir up the thoughts, allow the thoughts to come, notice them, accept that they're there. When you do an exposure, you ask for them to come. That's your medicine. Having the opportunity, it's a mindset shift, have the opportunity to notice intrusive thoughts coming in, but stay the course in the present moment. Gently bring your mind back over and over and over. Of course, there are other ways to work on this. We can do inference based CBT, where we look at what are your triggers, list them all down. Okay, next, what's the doubt that comes up when you have one of those triggers? What is the what if? The oh my goodness. And then third, for each of those what if, what's the consequences that your mind's imagining is going to happen if that what if comes true? And basically, that's your story. That's your OCD story, for lack of a better word. That's what starts to increase the levels of anxiety and discomfort, because when we imagine a story, our mind doesn't really know the difference between imagining it and it happening for real. So our anxiety levels and the desire to do a compulsion, to fix it, to ruminate, to seek reassurance, to test, to expose ourselves to the thing and see if we're disgusted or not. That is the last chain in the sequence, the compulsion. So with ICBT, we look at, what brings it up for you? What are the doubts swirling around? And what's the story that we're imagining will happen? It's full of consequences. And most of the time, if you take that down to the last bit, what's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? It typically comes down to some element of being alone or not being loved or being left out. There are other things that you can learn in ICBT around understanding where this is coming from, where this thread of logic that makes it seem sort of believable is coming from, in order to have more of the grit and courage to do the redirection that I'm suggesting. And there's a handful of other skills that I do. For the sake of keeping this a little brief, I'll stop there with ICBT. A lot of this is acceptance and commitment. Be grounded in your values and your goals. And whenever this theme pops up, it's a speed bump. Okay, you can come up, but you're getting in my backpack. Stay there as long as you want to hang out, but I'm not going to turn my attention to you. I'm looking forward. Hope that makes sense. I don't believe you just want to be gay now. I think you've desensitized yourself and now you're very confused. One way to think about it, it like turns on you, kind of like if you lean on alcohol as a social lubricant. And the first time you go into the party or the social setting and you can have just one drink and you are feeling a little more talkative, and that works really well. But if you have to start doing this on a very regular basis, eventually you have to drink more, and then you have to drink more. And that's like doing the compulsions. You have to do more compulsions and more compulsions and more compulsions. It's always asking for one more thing, one more thing, one more thing. Until at some point, it doesn't provide you the relief. You can't do anymore. You can't drink anymore. You're going to black out or get sick or be so silly drunk that it doesn't help you in that situation. It hurts you. And then it can flip on you where it doesn't help you at all. You build up a tolerance. You have to drink too much to maintain the course, and you become a slave to the alcohol. You just have to have it to survive, like a habit. And I believe that's the stage you've reached with these types of exposures. So you have to abstain from doing the compulsions. If you want to focus your energy on one thing, it's not doing those compulsions. And I just want you to be very clear that the testing that you're doing is missing the mark for an exposure and is a compulsion. Submit questions for me in the comments or send it in to ocdinsights.com/ask-Sam. And I'd love to answer more of these for folks. And I'm starting a Substack so we can actually have more comments and conversation on these harder taboo topics in a safe and contained community. All right, there. And I'll close it here. We're right at the 30-minute mark. Thank you for listening, and I hope this helped. And now, if this resonated with you or you'd like to hear more Q&A or episodes where I interview folks about their OCD journey and expert guests that can teach some wonderful tools to supplement the therapy or work you're already doing, please like, subscribe so you don't miss a beat. If you'd like to submit a question or submit to share your journey here on OCD Insights, head on over to OCD Insights /AskSam and we will get your question answered. Thanks so much.
The deeper I get into the moon, the more I seem to hear and see. And so the deeper I get into the moment is where I find my true reality. And the deeper I get into the moment, the more it seems this world stands still. And so the deeper I get into the moment is where I find my ultimate thrill. Well, I go deep down to analyze details of the moment. And when I go deep down, I get so mesmerized by every component. And when I go deeper down, I get to visit time's static opponent. Each moment an abyss without an end. And the deeper I get into the moment, the less my mind seems to fear. And so the deeper I get into the moment is where I find my thoughts become most